Are you guys ready for the tier list? Funny thing is, you see, Master Duel's on maintenance right now, and I had planned on doing this before I knew that was a fact. This week, I want to have a whole bunch of streams that are Yu-Gi-Oh related and have nothing to do with Master Duel. I love the ranking streams. Good. What we're going to do is rank all of these hand traps now in order from best to worst. So we have S tier, A tier, B tier, niche, and bad. First up, we have Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. As everybody knows, this is the most played hand trap in the game, so probably A tier. It's all right. Next up, we have Ghost Bell and the Haunted Mansion. As everybody knows, Ghost Bell has the effect to negate the activation of a card, which includes an effect to move a card from the graveyard somewhere else. So that's probably B tier. Ghost Bell underrated. Should we put Ash Blossom at number in S tier? Like, it is used in every deck, but it just stops one ability. The most played, I mean, it's so played, I don't want to put it in S tier though. It's just like one thing. S tier seems like an estimation of her abilities. Ash is the bane of my existence. Ash doesn't even stop meta decks anymore. Ash is definitely S tier. I'll put it in S tier so you guys don't complain about it. I don't think it's an S tier hand trap though. Next up, this isn't really a hand trap. Phantom, it's chaos something. Basically, if your opponent summons a monster, you can discard a card to special summon this card from your hand. And while it's on the field, your opponent cannot banish cards. So, hey, that's actually is a flu counter now that I think about it. We'll put this in niche territory. It did see play in Duel Links, like really good play in Duel Links, because back when the Dark Magician support first came out, it like dominated Duel Links. And Dark Magician's only form of removal is by banishing. So this was a really good way to stop that. Ash doesn't stop dangers? No. Yeah, but in Duel Links, Ash is S tier because it stops something every deck does. I guess it's S tier just because it has so many targets that it stops. Next up, we have Ally of Justice something something. So this one is, you discard it from your hand and you can banish 2 light monsters from your opponent's graveyard. So it's like DD Crow, but for 2 monsters, only if they're light, which is pretty good. This is probably an A tier hand trap because of how many good light monsters there are. I think last time I saw play was when Drytron was in the meta, because it could banish Ben 10 and all the Drytron cards from the graveyard. It was better to banish 2 of them than it was to banish 1 of them, because all the Drytrons were like light. Niche is good. It does see play. It's like the most played Ally of Justice card behind Catastor, but in modern day, it's the most played Ally of Justice card. Yeah, Blue Eyes? Oh yeah, this thing destroys Blue Eyes decks. This was also main deck in Duel Links back when Blue Eyes was a menace. Next up, we have DD Crow. DD Crow banishes 1 card from, I think, only your opponent's graveyard. Is it either graveyard, or I think it's just yours? So this is basically B tier. It's a solid A. I'd say B tier is pretty good for DD Crow. You see, DD Crow has consistently seen play over the years, but personally, I rarely play it because it's not that good against enough decks. It's decent, but like every time I main deck it in Master Duel, not many people are using it, not like graveyard stuff where I can actually stop it. Yeah, no negate. It doesn't even negate how lame, but the thing is, it has seen play over the years. Like it's like one of the very first hand traps that was ever released that was good. I think it even came out before Effect Veiler, which was 2010. I'm pretty sure this one was like 2008 or 2009. It's one of the earliest hand traps, and it keeps seeing play even today. DD Crow only banished, but not to negate the effect. That's true, but you can just get rid of a resource before they can use it. No Kuriboh. Kuriboh was probably the first hand trap, I believe, but like Kuriboh sucks. The only people who played it was Duel Links players. So easy B tier for the Crow. Next up, we have Spooky, Dogwood, and Ghost Sister. So it's like Max C, but instead of drawing cards every time they summon, you get to gain life points. So I use this card occasionally, but not because I think it's good. Chatsling Crow not negate, never used it against Ben 10 tier. They did have a rulings update to make it so that you could actually use DD Crow to stop Ben 10's effect from triggering, where if Ben 10 was sent to the graveyard as a cost, and then you chain DD Crow to get rid of it from the graveyard, it would no longer be in the graveyard in order to trigger its effect at the end of the chain. But that didn't used to be the case until they changed the rulings to allow it to happen. There's a dog, S tier. No, he's bad tier. I use it sometimes though, I like it. It's like bad Max C. The thing that really sucks about this card is that it has a failure state built in. Like, the whole point of this card is to gain life points, and its failure state is if it fails to actually activate, then your life points are cut in half. Like, it did not need the failure state. Like, gain a whole bunch of life points off your opponent's summons is not even that good, but also adding a failure state where if the effect doesn't trigger, you lose half your life points instead, that's such a slap in the face. They should just have this on all of the hand traps, not just the worst one. Maybe to work with the Row Mages, but Row Mage is not good. Not that good? You see, saying not that good implies that they were ever good in the first place. Next up, we have Dimension Shifter. Anyone who's played against Flu knows this card pretty well. So, easy B... No, wait, this is an A tier. Like, if you resolve this, you can win. This is like, you use this, you can stop your opponent's whole turn and you just win. But is it S tier good? No, I don't believe so. Next up, we have Droll and Lockbird. Droll and Lockbird exist in order to stop the meta from playing. If you ever are seeing people main deck Droll and Lockbird, then there's something wrong with the meta. Because what it does is after your opponent performs a search, you then get to activate Droll and Lockbird to stop them from searching for the rest of the turn. So it's like Ash Blossom, except afterwards, and stops all the searches instead of just one. But Ash Blossom sees more play because it does stop one, and sometimes you only need to stop one. Whereas Droll and Lockbird only stops everyone after. If it also stopped the triggering search, it would be probably banned. But since it doesn't, for some reason it doesn't see that much play, but it's still pretty good. I'll put it in A tier for now. Next up, we have Psy-Framegear Lord Omega. This card has an effect where if you control no monsters and your opponent activates a monster effect, you can negate the effect and then destroy the card, and then special summon this card and Psy-Frame Driver from your hand, deck, or graveyard. This is like S tier. It's like one of the only hand traps that actually destroys a monster. And monster effects are the best effects to stop. There are other Psy-Frame cards for the other types of cards, but nobody plays them. They do play Psy-Framegear Omega though. Wait, is it Omega? I think it's Gamma, right? I'm pretty sure this one's Gamma. Only useful if you don't control a monster? Well, I mean, yeah, that's a situation that comes up quite a bit. Because the thing is, it's also an anti-hand trap card too. Like, it's a hand trap that you can use during your opponent's first turn to stop their plays, like a normal hand trap. And it's also an anti-hand trap. Like, if you activate Water Enchantress of the Temple to search and your opponent activates Ash Blossom, you can then use Gamma to stop that. Like, you can use it to stop a hand trap, assuming you have a clear field. It's situational, but it works. So it's like it's a hand trap and an anti-hand trap all in one. That's why it has some limitations in the OCG. It is definitely an S tier hand trap. The only reason people don't play it in multiple copies is because sometimes your deck just can't use it, and it's only applicable in like the first turn when you have no field. And also, you do have to play a Garnet to use it. I hate playing Garnets, but it is really good. Yeah, but if you have two, you effectively have a dead card. Nuh-uh. As long as Driver goes to the graveyard, you can use the other one. Next up, we have Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill. So this one's like a worst effect veiler. Basically, it has the effect to negate the effects of a monster until the end of the turn, and also if that card leaves the field, your opponent takes damage equal to that monster's original attack. However, it only triggers when your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, I believe. I don't think it's from the main deck too. It's just, it triggers on a special summon, then you activate it like Effect Veiler, which is bad because Effect Veiler and Imperm can be used whenever you want, as long as you're within the correct phase. This one is only after a special summon. So if you really need extra copies of Monster Negation, then you play this. But there's two other cards you can play first that do what it's trying to do, but better. It triggers on all special summons? Okay. Well, that's a little bit better than what I was saying, but it's still not that good. So we'll put this one in... The thing is, it's not a bad card, though. I guess Niche. Niche is fine. Like, if you just don't have Effect Veiler or Infinite Impermanence, it's still good. Usually you want to negate a monster's effect after they're special summoned anyway. So, like, the trigger is not the worst thing in the world. It's just, you don't have the versatility to use it whenever you want. Next up, we have Cherries, Winter Cherries. So this one allows you to reveal a card in your deck, in your extra deck, and then banish one from your opponent's extra deck if they control it. So, back in the day, when people were like when there was a tier 0 format, you could just put something like Spiral Double Helix in your extra deck to get rid of your opponent's Spiral Double Helix to stop them from doing any of their plays. Because people usually play one copy of their extra cards. So if you're able to stack your extra deck with those cards in order to counter them, you can stop your opponent from playing those cards before they get a chance to do it. Yeah, you can use it to counter DPE, you can use it to counter ABC Buster Dragon, but you can't use it to counter Flu because they don't use extra decks. An anti-Rongo? It is an anti-Rongo card. You're right. But then you'd have to play Rongo Miniad in your extra deck. So sort of like Droll, and the card sees a lot of play, the meta must be Sag? Yes, pretty much. So we'll put Winter Cherries in niche tier, because even in those formats, it's not played very much. But it has seen competitive play, which means it is niche. But then again, technically so has Spooky Dogwood. Just very few play, not a lot of plays. Next up, we have no material. So this one makes it so if your opponent has a monster, you can use this in order to make it so that monster cannot be used as a material for a thing. It can't be used as a material for anything, I believe. I can't remember if it also stops it from being used as a material as a tribute, but basically the main point of this is like if your opponent goes into Crystron Halki Fibrax, for example, you can use this on that card and it can't be used as a material for anything else for the rest of the turn, which means no Halkidon plays. It does stop things. It is good at stopping things. It just doesn't stop effects. It's just this condition can also be used in order to just like stop other things. It can't be tributed. Yeah, it stops tributes too. Whoa. It is, it's pretty good. The problem is that it doesn't negate effects and it only works to stop your opponent from using it for other plays. Anti-Flu? Oh, you're right. But the thing is, you could also, there are other hand traps that can do what it's trying to do with more versatility. Like if you're going second and you draw into this card, you can't use it on your opponent's field because it's just not useful during your turn at all. Whereas Infinite Impermanence is useful during your turn, for example. So is Psy-Framegear Gamma. It's only useful during your opponent's turn and like their first turn, and only if they're climbing into stuff, which most decks do. But it's just there's other hand traps with more versatility than it. It's a good card. I'll put it in niche tier. It might even be in B tier. Maybe B tier. Like the effect is good. One card material summons, exactly. Alakazam opponent's turn effect is too bad. I'd say B, yeah, probably B tier. Like the effect is really good because it counters a lot of meta strategies. Next up, we have the Infinite Impermanence. This is an actual trap card, like oh my goodness gracious. So Imperm is a trap card which has the effect where if you control no cards on your side of the field, you can activate it from your hand in order to negate the effects of one face-up monster your opponent controls until the end of the turn. However, if you do set the card and use it like a normal trap card, it also, if you negate the effects of a monster, it will also negate all spells and traps in the same column that it was used in. So it doubles as a spell and trap card negator under incredibly specific circumstances, and you can sometimes get a 2-for-1. And the thing is, even without the set effect, it was just already good because of its first effect, because you can use it during your turn too. You use it during your opponent's turn in order to stop plays, and you can use it during your first turn if you're going second in order to negate one of your opponent's negates or boss monsters, which is pretty good. And then even if you go first, you can just set the card and just have an extra negate that might be able to negate a spell trap as well. Or your own, because it also locks out your columns as well. So Infinite Impermanence is, I believe, the first or second most played hand trap in the game. I can't remember if it's this one or Ash Blossom, so probably B tier. I mean, it is a trap card. Like, trap cards are garbage. Just kidding, this is an easy S tier. I remember one of my scriptwriters was talking to me, and he's like, man, Skill Prisoner is so good. Why don't people play this over Infinite Impermanence? It gives you 2 negates. Isn't the effects of having 2 negates better than just 1 from the hand? Because you can also use it again in the graveyard in order to negate your opponent's effects during your turn. The 400 attack hand trap seems pretty good. Shut up. No, it's not. It's garbage. And I was like, oh boy. Oh my goodness. How do I possibly explain why Infinite Impermanence is just so much better than Skill Prisoner? And I was like, well, you see, the fact that it's a monster negate from the hand is so much better that it's kind of in a different dimension of playability. Sure, there are some trap cards that have better negates. Solemn Strike probably has one of the best monster negates in the game, but it's not played as much as Infinite Impermanence because you can't use it from your hand. There's also Lost Winds, which has a really good negate. There's also Titanicider that has like infinite negates because it comes back every turn. and negates monster effects and doesn't see any play. Whereas Infinite Impermanence sees all the play, and all it does is negate monster effects until the end of the turn. Titanocider negates monster effects permanently and comes back every turn. Why don't people play Titanocider? Well, because it sucks. You have to set it first, and it only works on special summon monsters from the extra deck. And sure, it returns every turn, but only it is a hard once per turn shared between its negate and its comeback effect. So it's more like every other turn. Other scriptwriters was going to say you should say something controversial, stir up drama. No, I just had to explain why Infinite Impermanence was good, and it made me just question everything. It's like, you should know this. I politely suggested that they play Master Duel to understand the game better, because if they had been playing the game, they wouldn't have asked that question. Are archetype exclusive hand traps no good? Yeah, not in this list. This list wasn't made by me. Someone else made it. If it was, I would probably put the Marine Cess hand trap at in S tier 2, because that one's really good. Where's the cockroach? I don't know. The person here didn't put the cockroach in. Next up, we have Artifact Scythe. No, this isn't Scythe. This is Artifact. Which one is this? I know what it does. I forgot its name. It's Lancia? Yeah, Lancia. So you tribute this card from your hand or field, and your opponent can't banish anything, which stops flute players and dinosaur players dead in their tracks because they need to banish. Yeah, it's an anti-banish card, which is surprisingly useful against a lot of decks, but not enough of them. I'll put this in B tier just because of how much it has been useful. It's an incredibly niche hand trap that just stops your opponent from banishing. But that effect has been so useful against so many meta decks that it's a little bit above niche tier just because it's seen just a massive amount of competitive play. Like before DPE, before Dagda, with Scythe, people were memeing that, remember when Scythe and Morotach were the best artifacts? And then DPE came out and they're like, yeah, Scythe is still the best artifact. People were just playing Lancia a lot because the meta didn't allow you to bring out Scythe very effectively. Next up, we have Nibiru. Nibiru has the effect where if your opponent summons 5 cards, then you tribute all cards on the field and you give him a token which has stats equal to the stats of all the monsters tributed, and then you get to summon Nibiru from your hand, which has 3,000 attack. This card can single-handedly win you the game against a lot of decks. It single-handedly warps the meta around it, where if there's too much summoning, you can just use Nibiru to stop them. And in fact, some decks have an advantage if they're able to do their combos in less than 5 summons because of Nibiru. So we'll put Nibiru in S tier. It is an S tier hand trap. It is amazing. If a hand trap can win you the game on its own, that's pretty good. A tier, you guys don't know nothing about nothing. Next up, yeah, heroes. Yeah, it's because of Nibiru that hero players cry at night. They wake up and they see a big token at the end of their board. S tier since it killed combo heavy decks? Yep, it is very good. It's basically Max C but balanced, and still is very good, because they created this as a replacement for Max C pretty much. Next up, we have Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. Most of you guys, no, this isn't Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. This is Ghost Ogre, right? Ghost Ogre, is it just Ghost Ogre? Isn't something with like a rabbit? What's her full name? Snow Rabbit? Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit? Yeah. So she was actually the first of the Ghost Sisters released, so her effect's a little bit different than all the others, in the fact that her effect can be activated from the hand or while face up on the field. And also, it's psychic, so it can be brought up with emergency teleport, whereas the other ones are like zombies and not psychic. It's really good. It has an effect where if a card is face up on the field and activates its effect, you can discard it to destroy the card. It doesn't negate, but it does destroy, which does stop things like field spells or continuous spells and traps from resolving correctly. But only if they were already on the field first. So you can't use it to stop Fire Formation 10 key because it uses its search immediately. But you can use it if it has like an activatable effect that it uses already when it's on the field, like the field spell for the Despias. And it also works on monsters to activate their effects, but it doesn't matter if they were already on the field or not. And it's very good at stopping Sword Soul players because it destroys the card and then they're left with a token that locks them out of summoning. So Ghost Ogre has been good since it came out, and it stopped seeing as much play because of the other Ghost Sisters being released. And then people were like, oh right, this card's really good, we should keep playing it, and then it shot up in popularity again. No monsters have to be on the field too? Yeah, it's an amazing card. Next up, we have Herald of the Orange Light. This card's only used in Drytron. I don't know why it's on this list. It's a good hand trap in Drytron. It's not really a generic one. We'll put niche. Next up, we have Phantazmay, the Fantastic Dragon. Man, this card was so good. People thought this card was going to get banned because it was so good. Basically, if your opponent special summons a Link monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then, you can draw cards equal to the amount of Link monsters your opponent controls +1. So it comes out and goes +1 immediately. Actually, does it draw that many cards? Let me see. I don't remember the exact effect of Phantazmay. If your opponent special summons a Link monster, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. Draw cards equal to the number of Link monsters your opponent controls +1. Then shuffle cards from your hand into your deck equal to the number of Link monsters they control. When your opponent activates a card or effect, yeah, okay. So you do shuffle back. I was about to say, I'm pretty sure you shuffle back, but I wasn't 100% on that. This has been a while since I've actually played this card. Basically, it allows you to draw a card. It is a +1 in card advantage for sure, but it also allows you to reset your garnets, which was amazing. Because back when this card came out, people were playing a ton of garnets. People still play garnets. Like, there's garnets in pretty much every engine. And cards you want back in your deck, and it allows you to reset your garnets while gaining advantage. It's like a better Magical Mallet. It works basically how people wish Magical Mallet worked. And also, while it's on the field, it has a negate, where if your opponent targets one of your monsters, you can discard a card in order to negate and destroy the card. The problem with it in the modern day is that it only triggers from your opponent Link summoning. Back in Master Rule 4, that was very easy to trigger because if you wanted to play X-Deck monsters, you had to Link summon. So when everybody was forced to Link summon, this card was amazing. Now that you're not forced to do it, funny enough, a lot of decks just don't do Link summoning. So its effect isn't as widespread as it once was. It used to be amazing. Everybody thought the card was going to get banned because it was too good at just resetting everything and gaining you advantage. And then once they lifted the restrictions, it stopped seeing play. So it's niche. Everything's niche apparently. Next up, we have Skullmeister. Skullmeister negates the effects of monsters that activate in the graveyard, or cards, not just monsters. It's usually played alongside Ghost Bell and DD Crow if you really want to shut down your opponent's graveyard. Yeah, B tier for sure. It's also not once per turn, and it's also level 4, which makes it a great bridge target for Small World. It's like one of the only hand traps that's level 4, and it has decent attack. Like, if all the other Ghost Girl hand traps are made like Skullmeister, there would probably be different tournament results because you wouldn't believe how many times like meta decks go against each other and they just exhaust each other's resources, and then they're forced to just set their hand traps. Whereas if all of them were statted like Skullmeister, then that would be like, you know, old school beatdown decks where you're beating down with your hand traps against each other. Next up, we have Token Collector. This one's niche. I think it might even be B tier just because there's so many tokens. Like, the adventure token is so ubiquitous. Not ubiquitous, it's so widespread. And that's it. If you use it, there's a good chance you might be able to use it. Yeah, it's very meta dependent. It's probably more niche tier, but actually I'll put it in niche tier. B seems too good for it. Lastly, we have Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is power crept by infinite impermanence, but continues to see play because it can also give you access code lines, thanks to the effect of Selene the Master Magicians. We'll put this one in B tier. A tier? Are you crazy? Why would you play Effect Veiler when you could just play infinite impermanence? Even when you can play hand traps. Usually you don't play Effect Veiler unless you're playing the access code engine, just because it's only usable during your opponent's turn and there's no reason to play it over infinite impermanence. And you don't usually need more than 3 infinite impermanences. But if you really need more infinite impermanence, then you can play this card, for sure. It's better than a material block? Yeah, that's true. It is better than material block. It is better than Skullmeister. It is actually better than, I'll put it in A tier. Sure. Now that I think about it, it is better than everything else in the B tier. It is more versatile. It can be used. How about Max C? Max C would be like in triple S tier. That card's broken. Kuriboh S tier. Shut up. Veiler is better than DD Crow at least. Yeah, that's true. It is. If you have, the thing is, one of the reasons it's so good as like an access code line with Selene is because it's also just a really useful hand trap. And you can also use it on your opponent from your hand, even if you have cards on the field. Honest? Honest is F tier. Honest is garbage. Nobody uses Honest. Dark Honest? More like garbage Honest. How about Tragodia? Tragodia would be F tier. Honest Neos? Honest Neos, F tier. Wherever you put Fader, F tier. Let's see, more hand traps of the video. Maxi, S tier. Tragodia, F tier. Geh, F tier. Gores, F tier. Battle Fader, F tier. 2000 Kuriboh variants, F tier. The Ghost Tricks, all F tier. Honest, F tier. Guardian Slime, F tier. Numeron Wall, F tier. as a hand trap. Swift Scarecrow, F tier. Battling Boxer, F tier. These are all F. Retaliating Sea, double F. Everything is just F tier. It is, because it's all garbage. Red Reboot, oh, Red Reboot would be S tier. That one's really good. See, the reason all those other ones are garbage is because you're not playing them generically in meta decks. You don't see them like you see these cards. Like, these cards can actually like stop your opponent from playing the game in order to win you the game. Whereas Honest is just like, wow, you didn't destroy your opponent's monsters before the battle phase? What kind of weak deck are you playing? Cringe.